This is 6 Minute English from bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English from bbclearningenglish.com. My name is Jennifer and I'm joined in the studio by Neil.
Hello. In this programme we look at a story in the news and teach you some new vocabulary and expressions along the way.
In this episode, we're going to be talking about cycling and how to keep safe on the road. Do you cycle, Neil?
Yes, I do. I use my bike to commute or travel to work. It's quite a long journey, but it's much cheaper than taking the tube or the train. What about you, Jen?
Well, I've just bought a folding bike. That's a bike that you can take apart, fold up and carry if you don't want to ride it. For me, it's a good way to get fit.
Yes, a folding bike is very handy, but they are very expensive.
You can hire bicycles for short journeys in London. It leads me on to today's question.
OK, what is it?
A record number of bikes were hired on one day during the London Olympic Games in 2012. But how many times were bikes borrowed on this day? Was it A, 15,000, B, 31,000, or C, 47,000?
Well, those are all very high numbers, but I'm going to guess C, 47,000.
We'll find out if you're right at the end of the programme. So let's go back to our story about cycling. We've said that the advantages are that it is a good way to get fit and a cheap way to travel. But are there any disadvantages?
I suppose that it can be a dangerous way to travel if you're cycling in a city centre, especially in heavy traffic. Heavy traffic means lots of cars or other vehicles on the road.
Many cyclists now wear helmet cameras, a device attached to their cycling helmet, so that they can film people who drive dangerously.
Listen to this clip of London cyclist Ben Porter. Why did he start using a helmet camera?
I first got the camera because I'd had trouble convincing friends and family of what actually happened on the roads, and I thought that having a camera and footage would be a good way of explaining what it's like to be a cyclist on the road. I always saw it as some form of insurance, and it did feel like, as a cyclist, I didn't have as much behind me as, say, a car driver with an insurance company.
So that was cyclist Ben Porter. He said he thought that having a camera and footage would be a good way to explain what it's like to be a cyclist on the road.
Footage is what a video camera records. When the camera is attached to your head, the footage shows the journey from your point of view.
Ben Porter gave another reason why he started to use the camera. Did you hear what it was?
He said it was a form of insurance. That means it gives the cyclist a form of protection.
Let's hear that clip of Ben again. Listen this time for the words footage and insurance.
I first got the camera because I'd had trouble convincing friends and family of what actually happened on the roads, and I thought that having a camera and footage would be a good way of explaining what it's like to be a cyclist on the road. I always saw it as some form of insurance, and it did feel like, as a cyclist, I didn't have as much behind me as, say, a car driver with an insurance company.
So Ben got the camera so that he could show what it's like to be a cyclist on the road, and also to protect himself from blame if there was an accident.
Having a camera can give you peace of mind. It can make you feel safer in terms of the law, but it can't stop you from being hit by a car. How do you think cyclists could be safer, Neil?
I think that both cyclists and drivers need to pay attention to the highway code. The highway code is a list of rules that drivers and cyclists must obey or do. How do you think cyclists could be safer?
I think it's important to be visible, for other road users to know you're there. Many people wear fluorescent clothing, which is very bright and reflective.
Oh, and don't forget, a helmet could save your life.
Time now to get the answer to the quiz. I asked how many bicycles were borrowed on one day in London during the 2012 Olympics. Was it A, 15,000, B, 31,000 or C, 47,000?
And I guessed C, 47,000.
And you were right.
Aha!
On that day alone, bikes were hired 47,105 times.
Well, that is a lot of cycling. There must have been lots of tired people in London that day.
Yes, I'm sure. Do join us again for another edition of 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. Bye.
Bye.
That was 6 Minute English from BBC